Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Get in Tune. It's part two of public domain characters. So let's get started like we usually do. And let's hit the intro. All right, thank you for joining me today on part two of public domain characters here on Get in Tune. Today, last time we were here, we discussed a few things. I went over some public domain characters. I showed you the websites where you can find information on these characters. I talked a little bit about mythology and fairy tales and how Disney will take a fairy tale and change it a bit, to fit their needs, but they'll use the characters. So, for example, if you wanted to do a Snow White story, there is a Snow White original story. But Disney owns Disney's Snow White. So you can't use their imagery, you can't use their story. Now, a lot of those, I couldn't pull out the book, it's over there. Now, a lot of those type of stories are a lot darker than what Disney uses. It's the Grimm fairy tales. The Brothers Grimm wrote these stories, and a lot of stories and folklore and legends and stuff are passed down from generation to generation, usually through oral communication, meaning talking and telling a story. Sometimes it was done through puppetry. Sometimes you would see artwork depicted. I mean, a lot of different types of things with these types of stories. And although I grew up reading comic books and comic strips, I've always been more of a strip guy than a comic book guy. Strip-wise, Beetle Bailey, High and Lois, Heathcliff, Calvin and Hobbes, Peanuts, like you name it, I basically loved it and devoured it. I also read comics, Superman, Batman, Teen Titans. I'm more of a DC guy. Love Dr. Fate, Green Lantern. So those are characters that are owned by DC Comics. If I wanted to do a story with those characters, I have to actually put a pitch together, try to have DC Comics buy my idea to let me write it and or draw it, So I don't have access to all those characters. I can love them. I can read them. I could create in my head stories that I'd love to do with them. But again, I don't have access to them. But public domain characters are characters that people have access to. These are characters that were created, when Superman came out in the late 30s, and Batman too. Everybody just wanted to copy Batman and Superman. So all these characters are, for the most part, are Batman, Superman ripoffs. I mean, I don't want to say ripoffs, but they're highly, highly inspired by them. And these characters, some of them lasted well into the 50s. Others, they faded away and died out. People forgot about them. But having access to these public domain characters that we can use, names that have a bit of an established background already, is important. It means you don't have to do a lot of world building. You could totally change it up. Last night, for those who tuned in, I interviewed Jay Piscopo, who you can find his interview right here on this channel. Jay is an incredibly talented artist. His work is highly inspired by Gold and Silver Age stories. He has looked at the comics and kind of revamped them. He took like the basic idea of these characters and they inspired brand new ones. So he even created new characters off these public domain characters. So that's something you guys could do. He, I won't talk about any of his characters or anything because that's his stuff and his stories to tell, not mine. But there's nothing wrong with, you know, getting inspired and create. You know, people have created characters off Superman. You know, Todd McFarlane says Spawn, this character Spawn, is a combination of Superman and Batman. I'll be honest, I don't see it really that much, but I could understand where he comes from. You know, so, but having these characters with these backstories that you can play with because they're public domain is fantastic. I also talked very briefly last time on characters that deal around mythology: Hercules, King Arthur, you know, any of the Greek and well, any god of mythology is public domain. So if you want to do a story about Zeus, you totally can. But if Zeus was interpreted on a TV series that you like or a movie that you like, let's say again Disney's Hercules, you can't use that interpretation of Zeus. You have to use your own version. And I've done this. I've written stories or I'm in the process of writing stories that use mythological characters. And, you know, I'm not basing it on anything that I've read in the past. I have like inspirations from things I've seen and whatnot, but they are their own character. It doesn't live in anybody else's world except the one I created. You know, so I showed you this book, which again, I don't know if you guys can get. This book was Legends from Around the World. It was a Barnes and Noble's book. It was one of those, I don't know, it's kind of old. I don't remember when I got it or what year this is from. Does it say? So this came out in 1982, the original. It was republished in 1989. So yeah, you're looking sometime in the 90s that I bought this book. Another one, and this one's a pretty heavy book I'm about to pick up. But here's one that I love. It's another Barnes & Noble's book, I believe. Oh, no. Hermes House. This is the ultimate encyclopedia to mythology. You can see just from how thick it is here. And, you know, they talk about myths and legends from the ancient worlds, from Greece, Rome, and Egypt to Norse, and the Celtic lands through Persia and India, China, and the Far East. So I love reading this type of stuff. I also love folklore. Folklore and legends are stories like maybe the story of Robin Hood. He could be a legend or he could be a folklore. He's a folktale of a character, a guy who robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. So you can build stories off Robin Hood. You just can't use the Robin Hoods that have been used before. Now, like Disney made a Robin Hood movie, but they turned him into an animal. He was a fox. If you were to do an animal version of Robin Hood, should you do a fox? Probably not, because it would be too close to Disney. But there's no reason you can't turn him into a dog. You couldn't turn him into a cat, a lion, something, another type of animal. So what I want to do is start drawing, and we're going to focus on mythology today. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. You know me, I'm always happy to answer your questions. Right? And we're going to play around with taking these ideas and turning them into other characters and other creatures, and so why can't not on a layer. Are we zoomed in a lot here? I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Hold on. Zoom out. What's going on? Command minus. Okay. That looks a little better to me. So I'm going to start with a shape for the head. Actually, I think that's a little fat for the character. The way I'm envisioning him And this is going to be Robin Hood. The way I'm envisioning him, I want him to kind of have a long head, right? You want him to be this athletic character. So remember, let's create that line of action and give him a body. All right. And I'm going to put his bow in his hand here. And I'm going to have this arm. Whoops, that's not where I want the arm. So the bow is going to be right here. And notice how I'm just very lightly kind of sketching in ideas. I'll do the other hand in a moment. So Robin Hood, we have some traditional features on him, right? He's got his hat. And his hat usually has some kind of feather in it, right? You know, I'll give him his eyes. So eyes a little droopy. I'm going to give him his nose. Now, one of the things about Robin Hood, I'm going to have him looking at us smiling, kind of little sly. He has a mustache that separates. We're going to give him a little kind of crooked mouth smile. And then he's got his chin. Well, not his chin, but his beard, right? He's got his ear. And I'm going to bring it back over there with his hair. So, whoops. I apologize for that. So now, before I put his other arm in, let's think about his costume. Well, I think I want to give him that traditional kind of collared shirt that they wore with, you know, the tie that you can see. I'm going to give him almost like he's wearing, what do they call this? Like a vest from that time. Comes down to a belt, and it's going to come out. And he'll have short sleeves on, and I'll give him some kind of, maybe I'll give him gloves for now. And I'm going to draw in, thicken up his bow. His boots, I could give him boots, or I can give him, like, I don't know the exact terminology for it, but like, you know, they're kind of low and loose. But I think giving him boots might be the way to go, more traditional. And obviously he wears a pack of arrows behind him, right? And this right here is the inspiration for Green Arrow. There is a character I believe I read about in public domain called Red Arrow, but you can guys go look all that up. And let's bring out his arm here. And he's holding, I think I did 3 fingers over there. Whatever, I'll do 4 here. And he's holding up an arrow. All right. So that's Robin Hood. This is a character we can do stories with, right? We can tell stories in you know, of more of a romantic era of literature. That's where Robin Hood kind of comes out of. He comes out of war. So sometimes you'll see him with a sword. But the classic traditional Robin Hood is, excuse me, is looks like this. But what if you wanted to modernize him? You can't put him into the real world if you wanted to put him into more of a modern day society, right? So what if we were to kind of give him special glasses that kind of help him see better. And maybe instead of a beard like that, maybe he's got more of a traditional goatee these days. You know, we can kind of keep the hat or give him a helmet, right? That has that look. So maybe there's a feather like painted on, right? And now for his body, maybe he wears something more armor-like, you know, like Kevlar that, you know, bulletproof vests are made out of. So you see what I'm doing here, how I'm building up this idea? I'm just taking the idea here. What if instead of maybe using bow and arrows, he uses a crossbow? You know? These are the type of things you want to think about. What about trying to think of an Aladdin, right? Let me zoom back in here. So we go to Aladdin, right? Aladdin met the genie. Now we're not going to do Disney's Aladdin, which everyone knows. You know, it's not going to be the genie that was voiced by Robin Williams and the Aladdin there. It's going to be my own version. So maybe for Aladdin, I'm going to give him kind of, let me do him larger. I'm going to give him kind of a bigger, no, too big. He's a kid. Let's do it. Let's do him as a kid. So let's give him a smaller nose. And I'm going to put the eyes above here. And he's not, and to be honest, he's not really a kid. He's a young, you know, he's a young man. I forget if his age. He could have been a teenager. He could have been, what's the word I'm looking for? A young adult, right? So I'm going to have him looking very shocked. His hair is going to be kind of messy and moppy, right? And then for his body, which is going to be kind of, actually, let's do it this way. So his head's going back that way, but his body is out like this, right? And we're going to have one leg popping up, the other one kind of curved over here. And we're going to have that here, and we're going to have his arms going back, and this arm is coming backwards here. No, I don't like the way that looks. Okay, so this arm is out like so. And there's the other hand, right? So what would someone like Aladdin, I'm drawing the, like, how would he be dressed? You know, so I think the way he'd be dressed, what would be great is we give him some kind of vest that's opened, right? So it's kind of hanging off here. We're going to give him a sash, so the sash could be flying backwards too. And I think I want to give him a shirt, but I don't remember what the shirts look like. His pants being very kind of, you know, loose and baggy, but, and I know it's starting to look a little bit like Disney's Aladdin like that, but that's not what I was going for. I think maybe I'll give him some kind of medallion around his neck here, and we're going to draw out, he'll be barefoot, or actually not barefoot, but he'll be in sandals. So we'll be able to see, we'll be able to see some of his, you know, we'll be able to see his toes. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry. Sometimes when I draw, I kind of zone out. So I'll have him look like that. Maybe I'll have something on the back there. Maybe a strap here. All right. And he's obviously jumping back. Actually, I don't like that. Let's do it this way. So he's obviously taken back because right here is going to be the magic lamp. And I'm sorry, but there's only a certain amount of ways to draw lamps. Like this. And I'm going to have the genie right here is going to have a much bigger head. I'm going to give him a big nose. I'm going to give him big, wide, open eyes and kind of big, heavy eyebrow. And we're going to give him a big smile because he's happy to be free. And I'm going to make him a little kind of chubby. And we'll give him the sash there that he wears, and the rest will be kind of smoky. Right? And don't forget he'll have his hair here. You don't have to have hair there, but he will. Actually, instead of the hair, because that is too Disney-esque, I'm going to put a turban on him. And maybe there's a jewel in it with a leaf. So you see a whole new type of character, not Disney at all, but still public domain and still something you can use your own story for. The important thing is that you're reading, or and getting ideas. When we excuse me, sorry, I had to yawn for a second. When we read, it's important to always have knowledge. Always keep your mind going with new ideas. I read these books on mythology and fables and folklore and such, and I love them. I really do. Those are the type of things I read. I read comics, but I prefer the mythology and stuff to comic books. So, and again, it doesn't have to be myths that you're reading. It doesn't have to be fairy tales and folklore. You don't have to read what I like. You have to read what you like and get inspired by that. Get inspired by what you have around you. If you like science fiction, which are like aliens and spaceships and things like that, draw science fiction. Read sci-fi books. If you like, whatever, fantasy or cowboys, like westerns, or you like animal stories like Bambi, or I don't know, whoever. I can't think. I'm blanking right now, but yeah, those are the type of things you guys should be reading, getting inspired by. Combine it with your love of, if you like let's say you love Captain America, right? But you can't use Captain America because Captain America is owned by someone. You can look into public domain and see what American superhero, like American style superheroes there are that wear their red, white, and blue. And when you find somebody out, like one I think I mentioned last time was Captain Freedom. He's got this red, white, and blue color scheme. There's no reason you can't take that and inspire and become inspired with your own character that is red, white, and blue, and it's loosely based on this. What did I say? Which one? I don't remember. Oh, Captain Freedom. Sorry. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart today, guys. I'm sorry. It's been a busy day already, and little bit of a late night for me. So let's talk other mythology. Let's say Thor. Everybody knows who Thor is. You've all probably seen the Avengers or know who he is because of the Marvel comics or cartoons. But that's Marvel's Thor. That's not a Thor I can draw unless Marvel hires me to draw him. So what Thor is, when you break Thor down to his core, is he's a Viking. He's a heroic Viking. And when we want to think about what would a Viking wear and how would they look, well, I sometimes go, because of my love of comics, go to Hagar the Horrible, right? So let's think about that for a second. What would Thor be? What is it about Norse mythology? What are some of the elements in Norse mythology? And you can look this up online. You could go and read. It's not a big deal, whichever it is. But to me, I think of, kind of tall characters, kind of squarish features for the heroics, kind of bulky, right? Kind of thick legs. Like, I think of Thor as being just, the epitome of like muscular, or whatever Vikings would have been, however muscles would go in those days. And I expect him to be really big. Now, I'm doing something, you guys know this, I don't like to do what I'm doing right now. It's called twinning. It makes a character look boring, but when I'm just kind of coming up with a concept and it's not even going to be the real fully fleshed out character, I kind of do this just so I can get an idea of the costume more than anything. So one of the things that Vikings would do is they would wear helmets, right? And some of those had eye coverings. So if I wanted to, they can look like that. They also had nose plates on some of them. And I could, Thor had feathers, and we could use that motif, but also most Vikings had some, or at least the depictions had horns. Right? I'd have to look to see if the wings are from his myth. I don't remember if that's a Marvel creation. Also, the thing about Vikings is that they're very hairy. That's something else so they're going to have a big, heavy beard and mustache, and that's going to be a very prominent feature on them. So, and they may even have some, like, and I'll do it with his mustache, might even have some braided. Right? Maybe they got some shoulder, protecting, features there. They'd probably be dressed more in animal skins than anything. I mean, they'd have their tunics, but they would also probably have animal skins somewhere included in it. So I'm going to give him his belt, and the tunic's going to kind of come further down over here. But what I want to do is I want to add, and I'm going to give him some kind of animal cloak. So it's going to be a furry cloak that he wears. Okay? And the cloak will come down a bit. It's not going to be perfectly long. And some of the stuff I'm doing right here is where I'm just kind of roughing out the edges here. It's because, they're not going to have perfect cuts there. Right? He might have some kind of body armor on him. And the body armor would attach around here. And I could add some thickness to it. Maybe he's got... We'll just have that hang out, that hang out. Now, one of the things about Thor, and I'm going to do this on both sides. I don't remember if he had 2 or 1 right now. But he had these giant gauntlets. Okay? This is what allowed him to pick up his mighty hammer Mjolnir. Alright? And I'll draw the hammer separate. I just want to get you guys to get an idea of what I would do with Thor. And I'd also probably give him some big boots and add some furs around it, because that's, you know, part of the mythology of the area, or at least the way people dressed. You know, so you're seeing something like this, and here he is as a Viking warrior. So what if I wanted to turn him to the side here, and I'm going to come in, and I'm going to think about how, oh, you know what I didn't do? Maybe give him some kind of long hair. And that's what I'm going to do in this one here. So I got his helmet on him here. His hair would be coming back. His helmet would be down like so. And it might even come down to a bit more on his face there. And maybe he's screaming. And his beard is going in the same direction. So you see what I'm doing here, right? I'll arch his body back, you know, and also, before I even finish that drawing, when we look at if you look up the symbol of Thor's hammer, you're going to get something that looks more like this than what Marvel had. And you're going to see something that looked like that. And it's got its decoration inside it. And there's no reason you can't make the hammer look like this. You know, there's no reason that, you know, you can change the way the hammer looks. It's a war hammer. Look up images of war hammers, not the video game, but actual different hammers. And what if, you know, maybe it had more of a boxy feel, like it's kind of made out of wood almost, you know? And it's got these extra hard metal pieces here, right? And to get that pointiness, maybe there's a spike or something that comes out of it. And let's bring it down into the handle. Maybe the handle is a really long handle. Maybe it's got, you know, some grip around it or something. You know, and maybe we'll have some wood texture. Okay, do you guys see what I'm doing here? I'm not trying to draw the Thor of Marvel. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw the Thor of my head. How does Thor look to me? And let's just come back out for a second here. So what I think is important to know with public domain, whether you're drawing King Arthur or using him in a story, there was a cartoon when I was a child. Well, I'll be honest. I don't know how old I was. I don't remember the year it came out. So I could have been a teen when the cartoon came out. But it was called King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. And again, King Arthur's public domain. We don't have to worry about it. But what they did was supposedly a football team was sucked back in time to the time of King Arthur. And the head quarterback, who I believe his name was Arthur, became King Arthur. And the rest of the knights, although they called them the Knights of Justice, they were the Knights of the Round Table. So that was a way of modernizing it and bringing in a modern references, so audiences could connect with that version of King Arthur. You know, I'm trying to think if there were any other. I mean, there was a cartoon from Hanna-Barbera called Young Robin Hood. So it was Robin Hood and his band of merry men when they were like teenagers. You know, again, Robin Hood is public domain. You know, think about it. I'm just looking around my studio right now, seeing if I see anything that I could discuss that would be public domain. And the answer is a big no for a lot of the parts. But let's take a quick little tour of my studio. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect my screen for a moment. And I'm going to walk around my studio. I want to talk to you about what I have in my studio and how certain things could be considered public domain or not, or what's going on that would be that would make it, or how we can use it in a public domain way. So let's start over here. So here I am, and I'll walk around. You can see things as we walk around my studio. So over here, I've got a lot of action figures. This is kind of my Hanna-Barbera, DC. There's the Disney Tarzan figure back there. That's a Disney piece. But as I go around, you can see here, not much would be considered public domain. All right, but there are things that could be considered parody, which is, you know, not public domain, but where you have the ability to make fun of things a little bit. But up in the top, there's a picture of a wizard right there next to Dino. All right, that is Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. I mentioned Lord of the Rings the other day, right? Lord of the Rings is owned by the Tolkien estate. No one can use Lord of the Rings. But there's no reason we can't use an old wizard. There is no reason that the wizard could be smoking a pipe or can't be smoking a pipe or be in or wear robes, because that traditionally is what a wizard would look like, right? As we come to one of my traditional sides here, we can see a few things. Let me move my chair out of the way. I got some artwork here. None of this is public domain, but these are characters from Erwin Hansen, who worked on some of the old DC stuff, and that's his character Gandhi. But there are characters out there like that. It's a mystic. This Green Lantern is not the Green Lantern that we know. This is Alan Scott. He's the old school Green Lantern. Is he public domain? No, but he's a character who got his abilities more through mysticism than anything, right? And there's a bunch of characters out there like that, and you should look these up. I don't know them all by heart. Just type in public domain superheroes, and there'll be a giant Wikipedia page where you can click on and see different things. You know, here's another wizard down here. I don't know. Can you guys see? That is, where is it here? Sorry, I'm just trying to. I got to lower it. Right underneath the James Earl Jones signature of Darth Vader. All right, that's Sylvester McCoy, who played in The Hobbit and played Radagast the Brown, sorry. But he was also a Doctor Who, one of the doctors in Doctor Who. But you see, you can have a wizard dressed that way. Up there, where are we going? We see a Green Lantern. I said Green Lantern was Robin Hood, right? Let's move on. Captain Marvel. This is an interesting piece. This is from a show when I was a kid called The Kid Superpower Hour with Shazam. And this is when he was called Captain Marvel. Technically, Captain Marvel, well, not technically, Captain Marvel is owned by DC Comics. It was originally a creation of a company called Fawcett Comics. And the very first Wiz comic is in public domain. So you have to be very careful. But technically, this guy right here is public domain for one story. But what that means is you can't really draw his story or do it. But if you own that book, you could actually republish it and make money off of it because, it's public domain. And I learned that last night from Jay Piscopo. Sorry, I'm just taking something off my laptop here. It's giving me some issues. All right. Next up, we got Dumbo and Pinocchio. I don't know much about Dumbo's past. I think he's based on a book. And I don't know if that's public domain, but Pinocchio, definitely public domain. It's a book of, it's an Italian book. It's now considered like fairy tale folklore, but you can't use Disney's Pinocchio. I don't know if you saw, I had another wizard up there. Where is it? Another Gandalf. And the reason I'm saying that is because right here is another Gandalf walking in the Shire to probably see Bilbo, because this is from The Hobbit. All right. So every wall in my studio here has something Lord of the Rings based because of how much I love it. I actually have a decal on the front of my on the back of my laptop here. I'd show it to you if you guys could see it. Just so you guys can see, that's my Disney shelf right there. A lot of Disney stuff. But there's another one, The Christmas Carol. I don't know about that one. I think The Christmas Carol might be in public domain. I'd have to look that up. But you just can't use Disney's Christmas Carol. Whoa. And then we just come over here to this wall. There's really not much public domain stuff on here. Nothing we can see. That's my Hanna-Barbera shelf up there. So, put this down. Get that. Ooh, almost hurt my hand there. So anyway, basically public domain is a great way for you, is a great way for you to discover new characters that you would never have known anything about. New superheroes. Mythological creatures and characters that you wouldn't know. Like I said the other day, monsters. Dracula is in public domain. Frankenstein's monster is in public domain. I believe the Invisible Man, a werewolf, all public domain characters. And you can make them heroes or villains, or anti-heroes. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you have so much opportunity to use your imagination within the worlds of things that were already created for you. It's important to, like I said, just read. I have Magic cards over there. If you guys know the game Magic the Gathering, I have D&D over there on that shelf. Those worlds are taken from the stuff that we just were talking about, this public domain world of certain types of monsters and creatures and things that that just help, explore the imagination. That's why those games are so popular. That's why people want to play them, is because they can now, you go into the world of D&D. I use that a lot. And you want to fight like some kind of ogre or something. You can. You can't do that in real life, but you can play make-believe for a little bit and pretend you're, maybe, I don't know, like some kind of half-elf ranger character who's going up against an ogre. You can't play, can you draw that? But all that's public domain. Elves, all those great fantasy elements. And we're drawn to them because they're such a huge part of our pop culture. And I'm not just talking about the movies and stuff, but you look at any type of story. Come on, we got in December, we got Christmas time, right? And Santa hangs out with elves, right? So we got elves in all around us at different times of the year, and there's different types of elves. So in D&D, you got elves that fight. Santa, he has elves that make toys. You know, so use your imagination, pull from what you know, what you see around you, but look up these things in public domain. They can totally open up your eyes to things that you couldn't even imagine. One of the things that I talk a lot about, and I haven't done it much on here because it's not the programming that I wanna do. Maybe I will one day, when I focus strictly on like storytelling, and it's going to be more of like lecture as I draw. Um, One of the things about storytelling, um, is I try to never forget history. History is really important, and I don't mean learning about the Civil War or George Washington or whatever it is. I mean that's fine, that's all good, but these stories that came before, like if we look at the story of Hercules, or even Hercules is a good one, but who's even more interesting? The story of Moses, right? We look at Moses. Moses was, as a baby, was sent away from his parents, put in a basket, right? Sent down the river, was found and raised by the Pharaoh and the family, and then he left to go save his people. I don't know if that sounds like anybody to you, but to me, it sounds like Superman. Superman was sent away from his dying planet, raised by the Kents, and eventually left them to go save the people of the world. So we can see these correlations between these stories that we love now and that we loved as children, but they go even further back. So, Superman may have not had the powers of Moses with Moses' staff, but he did have like the strength of Hercules and some other abilities that we couldn't normally do. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I can pull out right now. Superman. I just did Superman. Well, Batman. Batman has been. There's been a version of Batman for centuries. It just wasn't called Batman until, Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman. But there was people, know who Zorro is. Zorro wears a black mask, right? I have a broken version of him somewhere around here. Wears a black mask. He was a rich man. He had his own little cave. A lot of similarities and a lot of stuff. And they even say Zorro inspired Batman. But even before that, there was a book called the Scarlet Pumpernickel, and it's about a rich man who would put on a mask and go out and fight, the evil of the rich. And they did I don't know where it is right now. I have something somewhere around here. They even did a Looney Tunes cartoon with Daffy Duck called the Scarlet Pumpernickel. It was the same story as a parody on it. So taking these public domain, if you have a cast of characters like Looney Tune or Disney does, you can throw them in these public domain stories. Or you can create your own versions of them. So what I want to leave you with, because I'm going to stop a few minutes early today, what I want to leave you with is really think about what's out there. Look at these public domain pages. Just do a Google search for public domain characters, public domain superheroes, if that's what you want to work with. And read about them. Go on and click on the links of all of them and read them and see what's out there in public domain. It's important. Let's bring these characters back, because you can literally go out right now, make a public domain character, bring him back, and go off and sell comic books or a movie or something about them. And you don't have to pay for the rights to these characters, because as long as you do your own version, you're not going to have to worry about copyright or trademark infringement or anything like that. So I think a good place to always go is public domain. Also, like I said, there's a rich history of these characters, whether it's through mythology or just old stories that were classics that were great. I got a question here about, what about my monkey book? Well, it's a children's book. It's going to, I'm not done with it. I got some sketches back there I'm not ready to show. But as I do these streams, I'll eventually start showing the artwork to my monkey book. Remember, it's a kid's book. It should be fun. But yeah, I'll show more probably in a few weeks, when I'm more in the coloring stage of it. But just to let you guys know, I'm going to start streaming only once a week starting next week. I'm going to be starting another job for the summer that's going to interfere at the times that I've been streaming these. So I'm going to be streaming more in the evenings, like probably around 7 or 8 or so. But that's going to start next week. I haven't decided on the day yet. I'll make an announcement when I'm ready. You can check my Facebook page, or if you follow me on getintoon.net on Facebook, which if I have, yeah. So if you follow getintoon.net on Facebook over there, or visit the website, which is just getintoon.net, you'll have information of when I'll start streaming again. I have some great, I don't want to say great, but they're pretty decent blogs up on getintoon.net on the website. You can go back and look at those. I'm going to start blogging again, so that's going to be another way I'm going to connect with you guys throughout the summer. Just a lot of different things going on. But I need to work for my day job, so my streams will be more in the evening or on the weekends now. All right, so you guys, thanks for joining me today. I always appreciate when I have live viewers. Always the more the merrier. Please tell your friends. Go to getintoon.net on the website, and you can download. Hold on one second. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll just quickly give you a quick tour of getintoon.net. Let me just make sure it's opened here. And let me share screen. So here, this is getintoon.net. So I was putting up some of my videos as blogs for a while just to put something up. It doesn't need to be videos all the time. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to go more to text. Very rarely will it be a what's it called? A video, right? So here's a little thing I wrote on Superman about a change when I was on a podcast, some artwork, a thing about Garfield, about the Smurfs, a little studio tour of mine, which has a bit of a different setup now. You can go ahead and look at these and read these blogs. I'm going to start putting up blogs soon. It's all kid friendly, so no one needs to worry about anything like that. If you want to watch any of the videos and you're just on the site, right here is all my videos. And if you click on the it's actually a right side. I put left side of the video. Sorry, I have to fix that. You can get a list of everything in my Get in Tune playlist, so you can go back and rewatch it. Right? You want to learn about my app? You click there. If you're a parent, a teacher, a library, or whatever, and you want to hire me to come into your classroom or do a virtual workshop or virtual tutoring, these are some of the workshops I've done, and I can bring into those places. Appearances I'm deleting, so it's not important. Contact, if you need to contact me. Here, you want to hire me for something, best place to go. And then free stuff, which is a fantastic page if it loads up. There it goes. So you can get coloring pages. You could get a comic strip template, and then this one right here. This bookmarks you can download. These are my Get in Tune bookmarks. Download them. You get 2, print it up, and just cut them out. And if you print it on cardstock, even better. So you can get a Get in Tune bookmark if you're interested. So that's it, guys. Thanks for hanging. Oh, have you figured the lion? I don't remember what I was doing with the lion. I do apologize. It's been a lot of work going on here. I'll try to remember. Maybe I was doing a sketch for you guys, or I know that. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I'm putting a line. I'm putting kid versions of different animals at the end of this monkey children's book I'm doing. And I honestly, I haven't played with the characters yet. I've done some sketches, but nothing that I would say I'm finalized on. Right now, I'm just focusing on the monkey and all the pages until I need to get, because the animals are on like the last 2 pages of the book. The other animals, the rest of it's just about the monkey. So I have time to get and play with them. So, sorry. But there's actually also some great, if you're interested, if you look up like folk tales and fables, especially of like South America and Africa, you can find mostly South America, I believe. You can find some really great monkey folk tales if you're interested. You just got to type in monkey folk tales of South Africa or something like that. The Monkey and the Crocodile is one of my favorite. I don't have time to tell it now, but it is truly one of my favorite folk tales. So yeah, that's it, guys. Follow me on there. Check out my blog. I'll be updating that more and more. Like I said, the streams are going to be once a week for a while until I can build up a two-week schedule once I get settled into my summer job. But I will be trying to post some things about what's going on in the cartoon world, conventions if they're going to run, which they probably won't for a while. Maybe throw in some art, free art tutorial. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and that website's going to get an overhaul in a little bit. There's going to be a store where you can purchase some things that I'll be making. So yeah. Anyway, guys, it's time for me to sign off. Thank you for tuning in today. I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I sound a little tired today. Like I said, it's been a busy day and a kind of bit of late night with work. So again, thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys next week. I haven't decided on the day yet, but just pay attention to my YouTube page here or my Get in Tune stuff, and I will tell you when I'm going to be coming on. All right. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. Keep drawing. Read about public domain. Read about anything. Just read and draw. It's awesome. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.